Right. Good to go.
Okay. Right. Thank you and good evening. Welcome to the Stratford-upon-Avon Town Council Personnel Committee meeting. We're now live on YouTube and welcome to anybody who's watching. So first of all, do we have any apologies for absence? Town Clerk, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we've had apologies from Councillor Mackenzie and Councillor Wall.
Lovely, thank you very much. Are there any written requests for dispensation for disposable pecuniary interests?
No.
They're not. Do we need to grant any requests for the dispensation? Answer to that is no. Have we any members of the public who wish to participate on matters under which the council has control?
And no one has registered.
No one has. Okay, well, let's move on to the more substantive issues. Can we approve, please, open minutes of the Personnel Committee meeting, which was held on the 19th of October? Yep, we're all approving that. Thank you.
Yeah.
You take that as read. Let's move on then to the Town Clerk's open report, if we can. Town Clerk, do you want to start leading us through that, just to pick away at the bits and pieces?
Yes, thank you. The calendar of reviews, I think, is a very useful aid memoir of making sure that we don't miss anything that needs to be looked at on an annual basis. It also helps the chairman and me to set the agenda. So because of the change to our committee structure and a lot of the things that we used to do, we no longer do, or vice versa, it's a complete new look. So I recommend that you approve and adopt this review.
Lovely. Any questions from any other councillors? Okay, I think we're happy to so do, and I'd endorse that. It's a very, very useful document to have at hand, as indeed they are for the other committees as well. So thank you for that, Sarah.
And in terms of the terms of reference, well, you only agreed them in
yes.
When we changed the committee structure, so I think they're actually fit for purpose.
Would agree with that, and of course they're fluid. If anything comes up, we can always have a look and review. If we move on to the staffing levels, the report is there. There's a couple of pertinent points in there. Does anyone, Sarah, do you want to just bring us through the highlights or make any comments?
No, I have nothing further really from what I put in my report there.
Okay, any questions anyone wants to raise or mention? No, we're perfectly all right on that, thank you. Following on for that, job descriptions in the appendices. We've got the job descriptions for the admin officer and assistant to the town clerk and the deputy town clerk.
Mm-hmm.
Are we all happy with that? Yes, Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure whether it actually come under its own heading or whether it just come under health and safety as a whole. Are we going to have an officer in charge of COVID measures?
Well, I mean, it would be me, but then again, we're in close contact with Richard Lees, who is our health and safety consultant. And he is, although he's not contracted to work for the town council, he is, you know, an outside contractor. And he attends our staff meetings. Our team meet every week.
Right.
So, you know, we're working closely with him. But certainly, I think there's got to be measures where somebody is sort of overseeing, overarching in terms of COVID measures.
Yeah. Yes, just obviously what we're going to come on to and speak about later. I think
Yes.
It's important that, you know, everybody's aware that, you know, exactly which officer it is. I presumed it would be you, town clerk. I just wanted to.
Yeah, it certainly isn't Lisa.
Right.
No, well done. It's a good point. Crucial to have lines of responsibility and reporting. We're in a very fluid situation. The review of leave. Note the report again. Any comments before we go to the councillors from the town clerk? No. So clearly this is a point we're in control, I think, in terms of leave. There are no critical issues there, are there?
No.
All right, and so if we move on there, so we note that, we can move on to 5, review and manage the town hall as an office and workspace, and that falls into Councillor Alcott's point there. So clearly there's a lot of work that has to be done and has been done, and we're learning all the time. Anything you would like us to take through as key highlights there, please, Sarah?
I think it's fair to say that all the local government associations, the Society of Local Council Clerks, the NALC, etc., everybody is lobbying to get this changed so that not a lot of good things have come out of this, but the way that we're now working in local government, there's more engagement. It's also environmentally friendly, and it works. And I think the fact that they're taking it away is a retrograde step, as does everybody else in this industry. So I'd like to have said that I've heard, because I know that there was one councillor who's said that Mr. Jenrick is going to change the legislation. I can find no evidence of that at the moment, and certainly we've been discussing it at length on my town clerks forum. But you know, the government changed their mind on the 9th of November regarding Remembrance Day, so it might be up to the wire. But as it stands, it means that as of the 7th of May, we have to return to face-to-face meetings at the town hall, and that we cannot do this virtually anymore.
Lovely, thank you for that summary. Councillor Alcock and then Councillor Warren-Howells, please.
Thank you, Chair. This was actually raised also this morning in the district council meeting. And as you say, so there's a lot of lobbying, I think, going on at the moment. But I do expect a last minute decision. It's also making sure that you know, Mr. Jenrick is aware that younger councillors like myself, currently I'm looking at the end of April before I have my first jab, let alone being able to come into a council meeting with everybody else. It just wouldn't be right. Now obviously that could change at any point, but I do think there is strong lobbying needed. The only thing I've seen about it, Town Clerk, is I saw a through you, Chair, excuse me, is a piece in the Guardian about it, saying that, you know, from May everything is open, everything is back to normal. I don't really see that happening. We've had a lot of comments about people also, you know, from councillors saying, look, you know, it would only be right if we've all had both jabs, but also what about people who may not want to have the jab? We have, you know, not everybody is going to want to have it, or maybe can have it due to medical conditions. And we have to bear that in mind as well. I don't think it can be a blanket rule. I think there's going to have to be legislation on this. And would it be up to the council? Could we say to a member of the public, you can only come into our meetings to speak in the room if you are vaccinated and have been?
No.
But yet our MP said this afternoon in a press conference that he would leave it up to employers whether or not they're going to insist on it. Which brings up this whole question about vaccine passports, which he keeps on coming back up, but never actually gets completely shut down. I think it all comes down to one thing, Chair and the Town Clerk, and that's it. We don't know until we are going to be told. I don't want to see a blanket ban on council Zoom meetings, because I think for subcommittees and task and finish groups, I think they could be very, very useful. But I would also like to get back in council at some point, especially for some of the ceremonies we have coming up.
It is, sorry, I was going to say, I think you're right, a very nuanced situation. And it's not just about younger councillors, it's about younger council staff and younger officers and younger members of the public we want to engage, and so on and so forth. And we have a youth town council, which we're very proud of, and is developing very nicely. Councillor Warrenhouse, then Councillor Franchini.
Thank you, Chair. Really, it's a question of the town clerk. So if an individual didn't wish to attend a council meeting face-to-face, for example, would that mean they were either not part of it, they couldn't actually, their points of view would not be taken on board? And if the whole council decided they didn't want to actually do it, would it mean that our council meetings were then invalid?
Yeah. This is what we're all talking about on the forum, to be perfectly honest. This very subject. What if your council turns around and says, I'm not coming into the building until we feel safe? And I think, unfortunately, until Monday, I'm really unsure. We're all unsure. We haven't got any clear direction or clarification. And as soon as I get it, I would let you know. But one of the things that's very, very important is that council meetings must be available for the public. So I think we can't say, if the government is saying it is safe, I'm sorry, you can't come. When you think about it, the first meeting that would be in May would be mayor making, which is a very scary proposition, because you think how many people
absolutely
come to mayor making. And until everybody has had and today we've heard about the Nigerian variant, and there's so much that is councillor. I can't really say one or the other. But one thing that did come out of our discussions was, if the government refuses to allow committee meetings, council meetings online, there would be nothing to stop us from downgrading our standing committees and calling them something else rather than standing committee. Say you could potentially have the same terms of reference, but it's not. And then you could hold it online.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So your subgroup meetings, your advisory group meetings, and your task and finish, I see absolutely no problem at all in continuing. But I think standing committees, the word committee is the key to saying we've got to come back.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Franchini.
Thank you, Chair. My initial feeling is that we could be under a bit of a sticky wicket on this one, because the government on the 6th of May are allowing for elections and polling stations to be opened. I was reading David Buckland's note, was it today or yesterday, about the measures that they're going to have to take within polling stations. And I would expect that if we were forced to have a public face-to-face meeting, that we should be considering, something like that, where you've got screens to keep the councillors away from themselves, of course, and from the public. So I don't think it's excuse me. I don't think it's as easy as Jenny's picked up the phone. I don't think it's quite as easy as that, as to what we can do. And my other thought, and I think Sarah might have already mentioned it, really is what level of council meeting would we have to have face-to-face, as opposed to meetings that we don't have to have face-to-face, because cricket can still carry on with Zoom. for instance, having experience doing chairman's actions on Zoom, I can't see us ever changing unless we're forced to. We're even saving Neil having to come in from Evesham, for instance, because we do it all in Zoom, and that's one level of meeting that we have. I would say that if we had planning meetings on the current thing I'm reading, we would have to have public meetings face to face for a planning meeting, because of the fact that we would be having visitors attending the meeting, and then we've got the same kind of control. So if we're talking about downgrading our level of meetings, then I would say that planning is one that you can't downgrade, like the town council. So whether you could engrade this particular meeting we're having right now is another matter. So I'm a bit up in the air. My other problem, which is a personal problem, is the fact that, yes, I've had the jab. I'm not confident as to when I shall have number 2. And if number 2 has not come by May the 7th or whatever it is, then I would be quite cautious about wanting to have face-to-face meetings.
All of these points, I'll come back to you in a minute.
Thank you.
Councillor Warrenhouse. Thank you, Councillor Franchi. All these points just shows the nuances. Just point out that the arbitrary date coincidentally falls after the date of the local elections. You can read into that what you will, but of course do bear in mind that the same rules apply to us, or should do, as to the largest council in the country, being the Houses of Parliament. So we've got 650 MPs who on May the 7th all have to roll up together into a pretty tight space. So there's a bit of water to flow here. We're going to see exactly which way things blow very shortly, I think. And Councillor Orcutt is quite right. There's nothing we can control other than what we do ourselves, and we're not alone in being concerned, I would say. Councillor Warrenhouse, you were keen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. No, it was really to reiterate what everyone's been saying. I think that people are going to be so very, very reticent about coming back. As Councillor Fragis just said, irrespective of whether or not they've had the injection or jab or not, the second jab, and the efficacy is questionable as well at this stage with all the variants and so on. So, I mean, I really think that whilst we might well be told by the government, okay, you have to do this, you have to do that, I think that, it's going to be down to the individual choice at the end of the day. I mean, people are going to make their own decisions, aren't they? And that's what I personally believe. And I don't think you can force people to do it, because it's just, it's a disease that everybody's scared of. And you can't expect people to sort of just forgo that and just like, okay, it's gone. The government told us to come back in. It's all right. And let's just go and sit and have a council meeting. I'm sorry, that just doesn't wash. That's what I personally think.
Yeah, I think this is the point, that there are so many people who do not feel comfortable. You have to ask yourself, what is the motivation? The motivation is holding live elections on May the 6th. We don't need to go into that too much, but that is a motivation, because if you can hold live elections, you can hold council meetings, etc., and you can open council offices up. If you can't hold live elections, you can't, by extension, open up council offices or council rooms. So there is a decision being made here, and I would guarantee that a substantial majority of people, whether they are elected councillors, officers, staff, are really uncomfortable about this, and that needs to be resonated through for people to realise. So there is quite a long, best part of 3 months to go now, 2.5 months plus, before these decisions have to be finalised. So I would not guarantee that we will be reopening up, and it won't be an easy decision for them to have to make, but we'll see. Councillor Alcott, then Councillor Fragile, and then we're going to move on if we can, please.
Thank you, Chair. Town Clerk, is it not possible that we could rewrite our own standing orders? That the council decide when we open? Or are we instructed by powers that be who will tell us when we will be opening? Can we not, in this next 2.5 months, look at our standing orders and write in our own, saying when the council and the mayor vote in a full council meeting to return, but it will be down to the council.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. There are certain standing orders that you, excuse me, that are mandatory. We can't change them. And it's all down to the Local Government Act. Excuse me, let me just cough for a second. Sorry, instead of unmuting me, I've muted you, Councillor Alcock. I do apologise.
Don't worry.
Right. Yeah, I think you've got to leave this with me. I've really got to look into it further, because you know, if you're doing something that you haven't got the power, you're ultra vires. But I have to say that there is a town clerk on the forum who I rate. He's very highly. And I think they're sort of possibly going
toward that.
Yeah, and so I'm watching that space very carefully. But believe me, I mean, I've got hundreds and hundreds of emails in my inbox at the moment, and it's all to do with this. Everybody's backwards and forwards.
Okay.
I do know that NALC and the SLCC are going to clarify the situation as soon as possible.
All right.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. Councillor Frangely.
Thank you, Chair. I think Sarah's probably dealt with what I was going to say. I mean, what I was going to say is that as far as I'm aware, there has not been any kind of communication from the District Council as yet about what their intent is. I don't know about the County Council, but I can ask Jenny that. But it was all to do with the fact that one presumes that all the councils, and Sarah's obviously in contact with most of them, you know, what do the other councils think of this?
Well, I can tell you this, sorry, just to cut across there. I read a report, I think it was in the Municipal Journal, 350 council leads, whether they were chief executives or town clerks, had written and were very concerned. So there's a whole, I mean, there's a huge amount of anxiety, nervousness. So we'll see where we get to. I did
have a meeting at Warwickshire County Council last week, which was chaired by Izzy Second. One of the things that I asked, it was for parish clerks to sort of have a catch up with Warwickshire County Council, which is interesting. And, one of the things that I did ask for is, you know, what is Warwickshire County Council doing in terms of lobbying? And I was told absolutely categorically they are lobbying hard because they don't want this legislation to end. Why go back to the dark ages?
So there we have it. Okay, unless anyone else goes, I think that's it. We can move on, and I'm going to suggest now, given the next agenda point, that if I can have approval that we now move to confidential, we can then go through the remaining of the agenda with some of the items which are, I think everybody would agree, are confidential for discussion. Can I have approval for that, please? Are we all in agreement? Yes? Yeah, we're okay. Lovely. Thank you, everyone.
Councillor Voss, would you like to say good night to anybody who may be watching, and then I'll turn off?
In the gentlest possible sense, good night to anybody who's watching. I hope you've enjoyed it so far.